Phil Harris and Josh Phegan come together in an incredible fortnightly podcast, Dream Big, Move Fast.
A progressive, contemporary conversation on what it takes to be a dynamic thinker, leader, and role model.
Backed with over 2 decades of friendship, trials and tribulations that teach from real-world experience and what it takes to dream big, move fast. Be the best. It's the only marketplace that's not crowded. George Whalen. Phil, what are your thoughts on this? It's a great quote to kick off today's session.
Yeah, good little quote and good one for the aspirational ones, isn't it? Who don't settle for continual improvement. But yeah, certainly, if you're number one in the marketplace, it's certainly a lot easier than sitting at third or fourth. That's for sure.
I think the interesting thing here is that there's a lot of people that are in a position that they're commentating about what others are doing rather than actually getting out there and actually doing the work. I think there's a big thing in that in terms of when you look at social media that everyone's got an opinion about stuff, but you know what? The best people are out there just serving customers and striving to how they can go to become the best in the world. And today I think is a really interesting one because this is a topic that comes close to what you and I talk about a lot, which is about life, family, business, fame, and fortune. How all of those things actually come together. And I think that it's a really important thing that in an era and an age where people really they drive on your insecurities, they tell you the things that you don't have rather than getting you to focus on the things that you do have. How can we amplify the talents and the skills and the abilities that we've got to be able to go to perform at your best? And Phil, you're one of the best at doing this. Tom Rawson talks about it a lot the day that he sat next to you in one of our events, and he was horrified to see the level of the spreadsheet detail that you had gone to, even detailing what was going to be happening for putting provisions aside for a baby that was yet to be born and, in your family planning. So talk to us a little bit about how important is it for people to plan for what they want and to work with what they know?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important, right? Just to cast a particular vision for your life and probably more importantly for your family. So your business element side of things, I mean, that's only one critical piece, right? But I've certainly found from my experience, Josh, that the work side of things is, while it's complex and challenging at times, it's certainly not that complex if the family is in good order, if my relationship with Jen is in a good place and things are going well with the kids and we're clear on where things are going, kind of makes the work side of things maybe not quite as challenging. Phil, one of the interesting things is that, I got to call it the cycle of completion that, you meet a lot of people and they're, I don't know, but what are the things that we absolutely do know? So I say to them, okay, great, fast forward me 10 or 20 years down the track from today, would you like to be healthy? Yeah. Would you like to own your own home? Yeah, that'd be amazing. Would you like to own an investment property? Yeah, that'd be good too. Would you like to have $100,000 sitting in the bank account for a rainy day? That'd be great. Would you like to go on a holiday with your family every year? I'd like to do that. Would you like to have a great relationship with your mum and dad? I would like those things. Okay, great. Well, then if you know those things are absolutely yeses, then lean into those because those things you actually know. But when it comes to, things like emerging technologies or who are you going to be when you grow up or whatever the story is, if there is no clarity around that, don't worry about that. Just focus on the things that you absolutely do have clarity to and put your energy towards that and just take the next best step that you can in that particular item which you don't have full clarity about yet. And there will be a day that the fog will lift and the sunshine will emerge and you'll find the new peak to go and scale. What are your thoughts about that as a philosophy for life and about helping people to really understand that they've got a lot of incredible resources, skills and abilities that they could be leveraging? Yeah, definitely. And I think that ultimately, Josh, it starts with just simple. It's either just a one note on your phone or a sheet of paper and just looking at those kind of categories of your life. And we've spoken about this many times before, and business is one of those, and family and health and those sort of things. And just starting to get some clarity over some short-term, medium and long-term kind of outcomes of where you'd like to be. And I know that, you and I, we've been doing this for close to 20 years now, and you kind of set some everyone always kind of defaults to the financial goals if that's kind of the be-all and end-all. And whilst that is important, I think there's other ones that will help you actually get there as well. But I think, keep it simple, simple sheet of paper. You've probably got 4 or 5 key categories and just start with, can I come up with 3 to 5 outcomes I would like to achieve in all of those?
The interesting conversation about that is about knowing your life stage. And there's an interesting thing because I was reading a book recently where, it's kind of people go through these stages of life that there's the fog of youth. I don't need to worry about that until I get older. That's an old person's thing they got to worry about. And then when all of a sudden, life is going to be amazing when I go to sell my business, but a lot of people don't realize, and, Jim Collins-esque, he talks about it as being like cliff events that, everyone thinks they're going to be amazing. But once you've gone over the cliff, there's no going back, and life as you had lived it is no longer ever going to be like that ever again. How important is it for people to actually understand that there are going to be, plenty of cliffs in your life and some of them are foreseeable and some of those ones you're going to need to work really hard on when they actually happen to you?
Well, I think, I have a different perspective on that now, Josh, in my mid-40s. I think I was no different than anybody else. I think we all kind of start out in life and we think that there won't be challenges and there won't be adversities, but I've now come to realise that is part of life. So life is
I think if you have a predetermined mindset that I'm going to hope that these things kind of hopefully don't go wrong in my life, then you're going to set yourself up for failure, as opposed to understanding life is really about how you respond. Like everything in life is about how you respond to the situations that you're going to come through, because life on planet Earth is not easy.
So think about the life stages that you've been through. Phil Harris on his own, Phil Harris, trying to find a girlfriend, Phil Harris getting very lucky, with Jen Harris, getting married, having your first baby, having your second baby, having your third baby, growing a really significant business, going from one office to 2 to 3 to 4 and more. Yeah, are there any lessons that you've learned in some of those life stages that are useful? Because I'm pretty sure that a young Phil Harris, without a partner, without kids at that point, probably thought that he was incredibly busy. And if you have a look at what you have to do now and the amount of surface area that you will cover and the types of things that you're involved with on a day-to-day basis, it's really about learning what you say no to and really zooming in on the things that you absolutely want to say yes to. Are there any great lessons for people for those different life stages?
Well, it kind of comes back a little bit to what we discussed before. Like, Josh, I mean, you never have total certainty on how things are going to work out. But I think I did have relative certainty over the type of person that I wanted to become, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I did have kind of that clarity of going, well, I did want to grow up one day and be married and have kids, and I did want to have a business, and there was a certain element of health and well-being that I wanted to have around that as well. So I probably had some pretty good ideas around that. But then the other key thing as well is just you want to have 2 or 3 great people around you that can help navigate you through these phases of life. Because the good thing is, no matter what it is that you're going to go through, there's other people who have walked the path before.
So the interesting things are are there some hacks that you've learned over the different stages, in A, being a business owner, B, being a great dad, C, being a great husband, some things that you just think are important that you go, geez, I wish someone had told me that a bit earlier. Well, could have saved me a bit of challenge.
Well, I remember back in the early days, just going back 20 years ago with you, Josh, I mean, we were both very big on, I was always big on building life plans and systems and process around everything. And I kind of don't want to go over the top with that, but I think that the basics of developing, there's so many books we all read on it, high performance habits and those sorts of things, but I did become, I'm very habitual in the way that I go about doing things. And so I probably had 10 kind of high performance habits in my life that I just constantly used. And they were probably very good, Josh, more so on the days where I wasn't feeling good. So when you're feeling good, you want to get up and get after it, but there's certain kind of routines that put you in place. So I always stuck my life to the basics. I'd have a morning routine. I'd read my goals every morning. I'd have an evening routine before I went to bed. I'd sleep routine, protocol. I'd do a weekly review, every Sunday I'd sit there and go through my, what have I got from a business perspective? What's on my personal goals? So I kind of created these kind of life systems and life hacks that I would just really follow. So almost quite religious in the way that what time I went to bed and the food I ate. So those sort of things basically just kept me on track.
And do you still do that today? Is that something you're teaching your kids on the way through?
I don't know if I'm necessarily teaching them, but maybe teaching them by example. Our kids would see myself and Jen in our home gym almost every single day. They see us going to bed early every night. They see us getting up early, every morning, doing our best to eat food. They see us taking vitamins and supplements and all of those sort of things that hopefully by them seeing that as opposed to teaching that, they pick up on that.
So Phil, there's a real thing that, some people just, they haven't gone all in. You can see that they're kind of they do it a little bit, but they don't foundationally, they haven't learned to love yet or to get through the drudgery of what it takes to become, what they're capable of being, one of the greats in their version of whatever that looks like. When that decision happens and someone makes the decision to go all in, what happens to their life? Have you witnessed some pretty phenomenal turnarounds where people have gone from zero to hero in really short periods of time because an event happened and they responded?
Well, I think that's really critical what you said, because when you think about someone who's listening who says, I want to grow my business, or, I want to improve, most people are looking for, and this is a really valid point, most people are looking for the hacks, which is, tell me about how do you run your sales management meeting, or how do you do recruitment, or,
My favorite is, what do you have for breakfast when they see you with energy?
Yeah. So they're looking for the hacks versus that'll get you, there's no question, right? So if you came and sat with you and I now, we did a half an hour workshop with somebody on how to do recruitment as an example, right?
Yes, yeah.
They would walk away and go, there's my top 10, far out. There are some really key tangible things that I can do to become better at recruitment as an example. But if you think about a paradigm shift or a lifestyle shift, if the lifestyle shift now says, it's actually not about real estate or business anymore, but if the lifestyle shift is actually now I'm committed to becoming the best version of myself, of who I was created to be, and that no longer applies to real estate, but that now applies to everything, if that makes sense, Josh. And that was probably the shift that I made maybe going back as when I was 20 years of age getting into real estate, which was no longer about real estate anymore, but how do I become the fittest and healthy I can be? How can I become the best father one day, the best husband one day, the best business leader? How do I become the best auctioneer? How do I get the best health and well-being? So I think there's a far greater force, which is in the decision of saying, how do I become the best version of myself? As opposed to, can I just get some quick hacks that might make me a better business leader?
And it's like, Sebastian, the guy that just won the London Marathon in under 2 hours.
Sub 2, yeah.
And they said, mate, well, what did you eat for breakfast? And he said, 2 pieces of toast, some honey and some tea. You can see people rushing out to Coles right now to go get their bread and some honey, to go to get right.
Yeah, so that's a good observation. So people are kind of missing... They're missing the game there. It's not about the one or two little hacks that'll help you. It's the lifestyle shift.
So one of the great conversations is about learning what you say yes to and then learning what you say no to. And this is kind of an interesting thing. Like, you and I have learned that in recruitment, you say yes to one person, 10 other people don't come. The other foundational idea is that literally in life, you get lots of opportunities and you keep saying yes to that. And, how many gala auctions have you done and how many, charity auctions have you done and how many things have you just done? And then at some point, you got to put some protective boundaries around it for what's important for you and Jen and the kids, and also too more broadly for the Harris business. Is that an easy thing for people to learn, that literally you got to be able to politely say no to opportunities that come your way?
It's far harder at the start when you're 24 years of age and I'm not married, haven't got kids. You just say yes to everything. And I think that the older that I've become and the more commitments that I have, so I've got a wife and 3 kids, anything that doesn't fall inside my family, my business, or my health and well-being pretty much gets a no to, Josh. So you kind of learn to live within what's actually a priority in your life. So yeah, in a strange way, the busier you get, the easier it gets to say no.
And I think this is an interesting thing, is like learning how to go to do that. And the funny thing is that I imagine if there was a book that kind of said to you, hey, these are some important things for you to consider at the different stages of your life. Would that have actually been maybe a bit more helpful than trying to just discover it on the way through? And, what are the things that are going to be important to you in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s? And I was kind of like, in your 20s, maybe it's about choosing a career or developing key skills or building networks or buying your first property or building some wealth or building great relationships or travel and experiences or finding a partner. And ultimately, you become reliant on yourself in your 20s. Because all of a sudden you're no longer relying on mum and dad. That maybe 30s about mastery of career and family and becoming a parent, building new skills, future-proofing, travel. Maybe it's about building strong relationships, connecting with your partner, buying more assets, health. And maybe other people start to become really reliant on you as you become a parent. In your 40s, is it ensuring your kids' success? Is it building strong relationships? Is it leveraging knowledge, relationships, and capital? Is it about building balance sheet? Is it travel and adventure? Is it building a great team around you? Is it energy and momentum and health and children? And now your parents actually become really reliant on you because it kind of flips the other way. And in your 50s, is it about then looking after your parents, seeing your kids thrive, the big earning years to leverage knowledge, skill, capital, and relationships, redefining success, investing for the future, life by design, and a bit of mastery? And if I skip forward to the 70s, is that just about travel and adventure, lifestyle by design, maintaining relationships, family and experiences, and imparting some level of wisdom? So just thinking that if you had a bit more thought to what actually happens in each era, then you can really absorb and live more of that era more often and actually be really present and in that moment. Principle, age and stage, you decide what balance feels like. Phil, what are your thoughts on that? Because balance has been very different for you at very different stages of your life.
Yeah, I'm not the guy to talk about with balance. It's not something that I really believe heavily in, Josh. I think you got to work out what's for you. You can't.
Well, the flip side of that, though, is that I think that you are incredibly balanced. Over our dinner last night, I just want to spend a bit more time with the kids and do those things very particular and, take them out camping and go and do their school sports and be a part of that. So there's just different things that are becoming more
I think it's prioritization, right? So so the people kind of want the perfect percentage allocation of each bucket. Well, I'm not in that. I'm all in on particular buckets.
And I think that's a big conversation, is that learning what's important to you now for this era, for who needs you, and for what responsibilities that you have chosen. Feeling good and ready for more? Thanks for joining us
on Dream Big,
Move Fast.